The People's Government's leader, Rt.Col.Dr. Kizza Besigye, has advised government on how the lockdown can be lifted and Ugandans go back to work amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. On this, he says, teachers should be vaccinated since the age bracket of vaccination is 18 years and above. Essential workers should also be vaccinated, as well as the elderly should be vaccinated. And if they are not vaccinated, they should be isolated and put in a safe place where they can be kept away from the COVID-19 pandemic. As the country continues trapped in the trenches battling the second wave of COVID-19, retired Rt.Col.Dr. Kizza Besigye and Leader of a political and alternative pressure group, the People's Government is skeptical that government is contemplating announcing an extension of 42 more days of a partial lockdown. But he says government can only make breakthroughs in countering the spread of COVID-19 if the management of the pandemic is left to technical people as opposed to approaching the situation with a partisan perspective.
The first thing we indicated that was absolutely necessary and urgent was to change the legal and institutional framework that the management of the pandemic is based on.
Besigye says even though the lockdown was issued to control the surging numbers of new infections, government is shying away from discussing an elaborate plan on how it intends to reopen the country and mentally preparing the vulnerable persons on how to live amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. However, he was quick at appealing to government to focus all its energies and resources on mass vaccination as a priority intervention in scaling down the spread of COVID-19.
Without a plan, we don't know what will happen after 42 days. Because people are not being vaccinated, that you say after 42 days they are protected. So what would have changed after 42 days?
In a related development, Kampala Lord Mayor Rt.Col.Dr. Kizza has asked government not to engage security in the registration of beneficiaries of COVID-19 relief, urging that it's a civic exercise that has to be spearheaded by the local council leaders.
Finally, they have considered and allowed the LCs at least to pick forms from NIDA. Actually, NIDA is now giving out forms to LCs to begin enrolling those who were not on the list. And those who do not have IDs, at least they can have NIN numbers to be able to qualify for this support. Unfortunately, the directive is that after getting that list, the LCs should submit it to the BISO and the GISO. This is fundamentally wrong.
According to the Auditor General's report 2020-2021 on the financial expenditure of the borrowed COVID funds from the World Bank and IMF last financial year indicates that over 5.7 trillion was spent on countering COVID-19 pandemic as opposed to Ministry of Finance expenditures that reflect 4.3 trillion spent. The Auditor General's query on the expenditure indicates that 1.7 trillion was not accounted for, but the same report indicates that the money was spent on security, which was not a reason for which the funds were borrowed for. Following this revelation in the audit report to the Parliamentary Committee probing the expenditure of borrowed COVID-19 funds from international financial agencies, Kampala's Lord Mayor Rt.Col.Dr. Kizza is appealing to the Committee of Parliament to hold accountable the COVID-19 task force on how the money was spent.
You have claimed to have spent colossal sums of money on fighting COVID. Where has that money gone? How have you spent it? If they don't do that, it will be a betrayal to the people of Uganda.
Helen Barbara reporting for ABC TV News here in Kampala.